That's a great question. While the landscape of osteopathic orthopedic programs is changing, the leadership of the AOAO is committed to serving as the home for all osteopathic orthopedic surgeons. But now more than ever, it's really important to support the academy and for us to support the students by providing mentorships, logistics, resources, and more than that, opportunities through the biannual meetings and other projects that the AOAO supports. The AOAO is unique in that we're a smaller organization. We're quite nimble in that regard. We can offer more personal and professional opportunities to students, residents, and members through our conferences and for the recognition of our student members.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure. But Fred, I wanted to ask you,
okay,
like the AOAO, why would a student be interested in joining the SAOAO?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Just much as what you said, to me personally, it's the mentorship. You have the opportunity to attend some of these conferences, and the experience there is just phenomenal. You know, you have the opportunity to engage one-on-one with a lot of the program directors, and simple conversation can take you far. Not only just building a network there, you can also just learn so much just sitting in on a lot of these meetings. I had an opportunity at the last conference, the fall conference, to simply learn more about the foot and ankle. And then I moved over and learned more about the shoulder as well. So one of the biggest things I've learned attending these conferences and speaking to everyone there is that you wanted to obtain as much knowledge as you can now. So I think every student out there should, you know, take advantage of this opportunity to register and attend these conferences just so that you can learn more, gain more knowledge, and just simply the interaction, the mentorship is something to die for.
Well, you've mentioned a couple of really good points about attending the AOAO conferences and the SAOAO meetings. Could you expand a little bit more about how those meetings and those opportunities are beneficial to you, and for the other students that are out there, perhaps encouraging them that if they're not already participating, they can become participants moving forward?
Well, for many students just starting medical school, they tend to look at their resume, their CV, and they kind of pinpoint what they are lacking to obtain their goal in orthopedic surgery. So for me, it was research. So attending these conferences, you have the opportunity to engage with a lot of the residents, a lot of the program directors. And if you haven't already been to the webpage, we have a database for research and mentorship. So like myself, I like to, you know, engage one-on-one and simply ask a lot of these people, hey, you know, I'm a third-year student. I would love an opportunity to just shadow you and to help you with any research that you have ongoing now. Is that a possibility? And a lot of them are really open to it. So that is one of the biggest things you can obtain at attending these conferences. And it can really help you so much as far as, you know, expanding your network, becoming excellent, and allowing you one step closer to your goal.
That's an excellent point. And a lot of those ideas that you've shared here are ideas that we all share and that folks that have come through the process already have found to be very important.
Yes.
You had mentioned before about preparing for orthopedic residency and looking at different options and things like that. What do you think a third-year student should be looking at in terms of preparing for those opportunities moving forward? And then I want to share with you some of the things from my perspective that I think can be very helpful as well. You had mentioned going to the meetings. That's certainly very, very important. Networking, I think, is tremendously important as well.
Yes. So what I was told starting medical school is simply just doing well in your coursework. I think we tend to get pigeonholed into, you know, studying for boards and, you know, going to class or learning classwork. Essentially, they're the same thing. There's no such thing as just studying for boards and not studying for lecture. If you can master the material in lecture, yes, there may be some minute details in there, but I'm telling you now, trust me, that minutia will help you on the board. That will help you get the score that you need so that you can get one step closer. So my advice to many of the students is simply do not fall into this pigeonhole of, you know, I'm just going to study for boards second year and then your grades slip. Because you don't have a full mastery of the content, trust me, you're going to suffer taking this test.
Great point. Great point. Thank you.
All right. So this is a very big hot topic. I know I just touched on boards. So many of the students out there would love to know, with the single accreditation system, what would you suggest for second year and third year students if they should take the COMLEX and USMLE, or just taking the COMLEX?
That's a great question, and that's actually a question that is on a lot of people's minds. We get a lot of that kind of question directed to us, and we like to provide as much information as we can to help make those decisions. This, as it turns out, though, is an individual decision that's typically made by the program and by the program director. So, for instance, different programs may have a history of accepting USMLE. Different programs may have a history of accepting the COMLEX, or there may be a combination. Now, moving forward, the ACAGME will accept both, but again, it depends upon the flavor of the individual program that you're looking at. So if you would like my opinion, I would reach out to the programs that you're interested in and see what would be, in their opinion, more helpful in terms of your opportunity chances for becoming a resident at their program. Now, you're probably aware, too, that the NBOME has published multiple papers regarding the equivalency of the COMLEX and the USMLE.
Yes.
However, again, it can be difficult for different programs and directors to change their focus strictly from the USMLE to the COMLEX or vice versa. So take a look at the programs and try to decide where you're going to go based upon the programs that of our interest to you.
Yes, and that's fantastic. I think you hit it definitely on the head on the nail. So students, I just want to emphasize that it's simply on your research. You want to research these programs, and you want to do what's best in your interest in obtaining these programs. And just talking about these board examinations, I would like to also ask you, I'm a third-year student myself. So what is the advice that you can give me to better prepare for the audition trail?
That's a great question also. Of course, as you mentioned, board scores are important. Try to learn as much as you can as you go through your coursework. Prepare yourselves not only for your education, but also for your boards that are going to be upcoming. You need to study. You need to put in your time. As you know, orthopedics is very competitive, and there are a lot of folks that want to go into orthopedic surgery, so make sure you spend the time and prepare yourself accordingly. Programs look for students that are team players. They demonstrate high levels of professionalism, integrity, commitments to all orthopedic educational activities, and high board scores as well. Be sure to participate in these educational opportunities. Come to the different meetings that we have, the annual meeting in the fall, the spring meeting that we have. There are tremendous opportunities as you have mentioned, and also you're getting the ability to be able to interact with program directors, practicing orthopedic surgeons. It's really a hotbed of orthopedic activity.
Yes.
Grand rounds are important. Fracture conferences are important as well. The operating room and AOAO meetings.
Yes.
Those are great ways to be able to share information, and that's going to help you increase your chances of achieving your dream or your goal. Now, I remember from my experience as a resident, which was a little while ago, I would come up with 4 R's, which I would say 4 R's I think will be very helpful for any student that's looking to become an orthopedic surgery resident. The first one is be a regular person. Be the kind of a person that can interact very well, establish a good rapport, not only with patients, but with your other students, with residents, and with your attendings as well. Okay. That's part of, if you want my opinion, the osteopathic philosophy. We try to approach people as ourselves. We try to approach people not as a higher up type of an entity. We meet people on their level. And I think that's the best way to be able to affect a positive change in their life and in their health. The other thing is research. Do your research. If you can get opportunities with research during your medical school years, work with orthopedic surgeons, orthopedic groups, orthopedic program directors. They're always looking for folks that can help them out. Spend some time, do some research, literature, clinical research. That's going to help your odds tremendously. Also, reading, as you had mentioned before. Read for your classes, read for your boards, and prepare. Be prepared. That's a tenet of medicine and also, of course, osteopathic orthopedic surgery. You want to be able to show up to the case and understand what's going on. Show up to the fracture conference. You're not going to know everything immediately. But as you move along, I used to keep a notebook, things that I knew, things that I needed to learn about, because there's a lot to understand. And the final thing I would say is reference. It's really important to have a good reference, to have a person that can speak to your behalf. There are a lot of intangibles beyond the board scores, the grades, and things like that, even the marks that you would have when you go through a rotation. If a program knows who you are as a person, if you've made an impression on them, perhaps you've met a program director at one of these talks at one of our meetings, you've been able to meet them through the rotation, the other residents can speak highly of you and your work ethic and so forth, that's going to go a long way in improving your odds. Because at the end of the day, What we're looking to do is to help maintain the high standard of practice of osteopathic orthopedic surgery. And we're looking, of course, for folks that can help us do that.
That's a fantastic answer. And much what he said, besides being a great person, you can gain more detail if you visit the webpage. We have a mentorship database, we have a research database, and a lot of those intangibles that he mentioned and some of the tangibles that he mentioned, you can simply get more information there. I can tell you from my experience that I met two of my mentors from that database. One lives about 15 minutes from where I'm doing my clinical rotation now, and simply just sent him a friendly email, and you will find out that a lot of these physicians are extremely warm and they're open. So please utilize what he just said. And just speaking about opportunities, you know, I had the chance to go to this fall conference that we just had. And I also know that there's another organization, the AAOS.
Correct.
Now, what stands apart between the AOAO and the AAOS?
That's a great question, too. You have a lot of great questions today, Fred. Well, as you know, they're both organizations that are dedicated to orthopedic surgery, orthopedic education, orthopedic care. But our organization is different. Our organization is unique. As I mentioned, we're a little bit smaller. We can be more nimble, and we have a very much more personal feel. Okay. You may have noticed that when we were at the meeting back over the fall, that there are a lot of familiar faces that you see. If you haven't been to a larger academy meeting, an AAOS meeting, it can be overwhelming. A lot of tremendous educational opportunities, but it's difficult to see the same person twice while you're there. That's one of the things that I really like about our meetings is that I get to see you, I get to see our other colleagues, people that I've trained with. It's a smaller community, and the educational opportunities there are absolutely outstanding. The other thing that I think sets us apart is that we are a smaller organization. We know a lot of folks, which goes to references, but also students, residents, and practicing docs have access to leadership positions. You know, we're all in this together. You can be part of research. You can be part of the national meetings. You can give lectures, and many of our members do these things. You have the ability to serve on committees, both within the SAOAO and the AOAO proper. You can be on the board of directors. We recognize, of course, that the AAOS is a very large organization. They have around 15,000 people at their meeting. Students stand a much better chance of having a meaningful interaction with attending an AOAO meeting because the numbers are smaller, and we tend to have a more of an intimate type of a meeting place, a lot more interaction with other students, residents, and attending physicians. And that provides rich opportunity for resources in speaking with these folks. And how did you get into orthopedic surgery? What are the things that you did? How do you like your practice? Why did you choose to do joints fellowship, hand fellowship, things of that sort? You have a much better chance of having that kind of a meaningful interaction with our meetings. The other thing is that you get to meet up with the leadership of the AOAO. We're all at the meetings. We're all at every one of the meetings. And so if there are different concerns or questions that you have, we're very, very accessible. Of course, beyond email and phone calls and things like that, we're there in person. Now, we do collaborate with the AAOS on certain initiatives, and that's part of our strategic plan. Starting with the 2019 annual fall meeting, the AOAO offers now CME credits to allopaths, to MD docs that can now come to our meetings, receive CME credits, and contribute to the overall quality and breadth of the educational opportunities that we provide. In addition, we've joined with the AAOS and their orthopedic PAC advisors committee. So now we have a much more robust legislative arm. As you're aware, and you become increasingly aware of our position within larger field of medicine and the issues that affect practicing orthopedic surgeons, as well as our patients, it's important to have a voice on Capitol Hill. So we now have a very strong relationship with the orthopedic PAC, and we've been able to increase our voice in Washington, D.C. So that's a big part of it as well.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Certainly.
So sorry to kind of bog you down with a lot of these difficult questions, kind of putting you on the spot here.
No, these are great questions, by the way, and they're important, quite frankly. You know, the sharing of the information that we're able to do in forums like this, or the being at the meetings, or being part of email, it's important for all of us so that we can all take a step forward moving ahead.
Okay.
So I appreciate them, even though they're challenging.
All right, thank you. And you know, a big question that I've heard along the grapevine is that, you know, can osteopathic students expect a home for orthopedic surgery within the traditional AOA programs?
Oh, absolutely. You know, historically, we've had our own programs. And the reason why is because we wanted to be able to provide a home environment and an opportunity for osteopathic students to be able to pursue careers in orthopedic surgery. Without that, we wouldn't really have very many DO orthopedic surgeons today at all. And so I think looking at what currently what the AOAO stands for, and organizations like yours, and I need to mention that you guys have done a fantastic job. There's been tremendous growth and support over the past several years. Your web presence, the mentorship, and the opportunities that you provide to students, you've really become the one-stop shop for osteopathic medical students. And I may even say all medical students to pursue additional information about careers in orthopedic surgery. But we are committed to, and we've always been, the home of osteopathic orthopedic surgery. If you're a DO, there's a reason why you went to osteopathic school. There's a connection. We all have our stories. We shared our stories before. But there's a reason why we have made that decision. And osteopathic medicine made a bit of a risk. They took a risk on us. In my opinion, there are many folks that came before us, osteopathic orthopedic surgeons, that provided us with the opportunity to be where we are today. And it's really important that I do what I can to help residents and students like yourself have the opportunity to become an orthopedic surgeon in the future. I understand that there's a single accreditation process at this point in time, and there are opportunities. But we want to make sure that we're going to have strong, well-trained DO orthopedic surgeons trained through osteopathic accredited programs moving into the future. How do we do it? A big part, membership. Become part of the organization. Be a solid member moving forward, because the opportunities that we have today, we can't take for granted. We can't guarantee they're going to be there in the future unless each and every one of us is part of it.
Thank you. That's a great answer, because as a third-year student, and with my aspiration to become an orthopedic surgeon as well, I want to have confidence that there is a spot for me. And what you guys are doing is, tremendous work, and you guys are the trailblazers for this movement. So I want to thank you for just doing everything you can to just provide a spot and a place for us. And what I mean by us, all osteopathic medical students out there. Thank you.
It's an absolute privilege to be able to do so. And quite frankly, I feel that it's our duty to be able to do so. And I would ask all of the folks out there that are watching, if you're not part of the SAOAO, become a part of the SAOAO.
Yes.
It's important. It's important to support our pipeline of training. It's important to take advantage of these resources. You become a better physician, a better person, a better orthopedic surgeon. We selected an osteopathic training through our medical schools for a reason. We recognize the difference. We recognize how that makes people feel and how it really speaks to us, not only as physicians, but also as people. Osteopathic orthopedic training gives you the opportunity to continue that throughout the remainder of your training. There is a lot more to it, which we'll get into as we go into the other webinars, but there's a lot more to it than simply an accreditation process or so forth. We recognize the difference. So we need to all be active in making sure that difference and that uniqueness is available to our students moving forward.
Thank you.
So join.
Yes, please join, please.
So at this point, we're going to move to another portion. We've gotten some great questions here online. We're going to ask Dr. Lee Vanderloot, who is the Executive Director of the AOAO, to provide some questions that have been provided by the audience so that we can answer some of the concerns and questions that you folks have.
So thank you, everybody that's participated. So far, we haven't gotten any questions.
All right.
But
I guess we're doing a good job, Fred.
Yes. Yes.
we'll give the audience a little bit of time here to submit some questions.
Well, I know there's another question from our conversation earlier. You share with me how you decided to go into osteopathic medicine. And I think that that really speaks to each and every one of us. And I was going to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing that. And I can share my story as well, because that's what makes our profession unique.
Wow. So my parents are Haitian immigrants. They just living in a rural area. We didn't really have much, medical access to anything. So my mother would just do a lot of holistic approaches, remedies, tea remedies, massages, just a lot of things with her hands. She would diagnose me with her hands, and not even knowing what osteopathic medicine was at the time, it just, she instilled those values into me. So from that point on, I just wanted to do anything that involved the muscle skeletal system. So I wanted to become an athletic trainer. Then I switched to physical therapy, got into a physical therapy clinic and started working, and just realized that I wanted to do more with my hands. So I ran into a surgeon who invited me into the OR that helped me get into my master's program. And that is where I truly got introduced to osteopathic medicine. Did my research. I knew that was a place for me. I knew that it aligned with my values. And ever since then, it led me all the way here. So I'm just thankful for it. I think at the end of the day, it just started with my mother. So I want to thank her.
That's great. That's and you know, like I'd mentioned, speaking with a lot of folks that have come through this pathway, at least to the point where you have gotten, there is a sentinel moment typically that helps to push that decision, that you really begin to recognize the difference. I can tell you from my experience, growing up, I had an osteopathic physician who was my primary care doctor, my pediatrician.
Okay.
And I always had a very close relationship with that doc, but I never really appreciated at that point in my life the difference between osteopathic medicine. I just knew that that was my doctor. And then as I got further along and I began becoming interested in medicine in general, I recognized that there was a difference. And I always just kind of felt more comfortable. I always felt more real with the folks who were DOs. And that's something that we find difficult, I think, sometimes to really verbalize. What is that difference? But I think it's something also that we all recognize. You know, there's a difference in, and I don't know whether it's the selection process that these schools go through, the osteopathic medical schools seem to select different folks.
Yeah.
And although they're different, we're all somewhat similar. There's a thread there that makes us unique in the way that we relate to people, in the way that we relate to patients. And there's a lot to that. There's a lot to that. Sometimes you can't teach and sometimes that you can. And then you take that in addition with the additional tools that we have with OMM and osteopathic principles and practice and bring that together. I share with my patients, you know, we go through additional training as opposed to our allopathic counterparts. We have training in terms of manipulation and in terms of seeing the body as a unit and seeing the person as opposed to the disease. And that is really a hallmark of osteopathic medicine.
And that's a great point. And I just kind of want to piggyback off that. You know, you stated several reasons on what makes us stand apart from our allopathic counterparts. So in the future, can we expect allopathic students or residents to you know, go through the same similar training we had to go through to finish their process as far as getting licensed and certified and everything like that?
I do think so. I think that, you know, the ACGME has certainly recognized the value of osteopathic training. It's expanded tremendously in other fields. And now, of course, there's the osteopathic accreditation that they can have for the programs for orthopedic surgery. So there's definitely tremendous value. And it's interesting, whereas now it's becoming more fashionable, let us say, in terms of medical education, to look at the person as a unit, to look at the person within their environment, to look at not just an organ system, but how everything relates together. That's not new for us. We've been doing that since the inception of our profession. But now it's becoming something that's seemingly new. We've been doing this as a profession for a very long time. That's instilled within us. It's within the core philosophy of osteopathic medicine. And we can share that with allopaths, with MDs as they come through the residency process. And my point, and what I share with a lot of folks too, is if it was important and significant enough for you to select your osteopathic medical school training because you recognize that, because that resonated within you, well, I think it should be important enough for you to say, you know, I want to follow an orthopedic surgery training that's going to support that as well. There is a difference. It's not always easy to write on a piece of paper or to communicate, but we recognize it. And we're getting better at doing that. But I think that if we can expand what we're able to share with MDs and allopaths into what we feel, what we have felt, is medicine, what ideal medicine is, and what it can be moving forward in the future, that's going to only help our patients that much further.
Oh, fantastic. Another question for you.
We have some questions from the
we'll take a question from the audience.
Yeah, and I think you've touched a little bit on this, but a viewer asks, as a medical student, what is accessible to the SAOAO outside of attending meetings?
So the question
Other
is,
benefits, I guess, is what they're sort of.
so the question is, what is accessible to students who are members of the AOAO? So right now, we're currently working on many additional benefits. Kind of reluctant to kind of announce it now because we're still in the works, and we want to make sure it's finalized so that we can offer it to you guys. But trust and believe that it's going to be well worth it. We're trying to have you guys better prepared for fourth-year auditions, such as having the handbook of fractures, which I heard is extremely essential on the audition trail as well. There's some other preparatory material that I was told by a lot of residents that helped them obtain the interview and also successfully get into the program. So those are some of the projects we're working on now, so that by the next meeting we can have that done, and then we'll have it distributed to you guys.
Well, you guys have on your website as well, you have the benefits that are listed there, and I
Yes,
imagine
yes,
you'll
we
be
do.
publishing those.
Yes, we do.
And one thing we discussed earlier, I found out a little bit about this with this meeting too. Can you speak, what is the cost for a student to attend one of our meetings? You mentioned all the benefits. How much does that actually cost? That's important, right?
So you guys have access to these conferences for a very discounted rate. Currently now it's only $20 for members. And then after a certain time period cutoff, I would say it's simply $25, I believe $30 actually, to attend these conferences. And while you're there, I'm telling you that $30 is nothing compared to the experience, the value, the knowledge you obtain, and even the food. You get like a 5-course meal at these conferences. So trust and believe that's 5 cups of Starbucks coffee for a 5-course meal and extremely large amount of knowledge.
Yeah, I think, again, you hit the nail on the head. It's really important to go ahead and check these opportunities out. It's almost like being on a baseball team.
Yeah.
How do you get better at baseball? You go to practice.
Yes.
You spend time with your teammates. You learn how to work together. You learn how to develop your skills. Going to the SAOAO meetings are important. You brainstorm. What did one person hear? What did another person hear? You can share that information. You can talk about x-rays. You could talk about experiences with rotations.
And that's a great point. At these conferences, you have the opportunity to attend 2 very large workshops, the student workshop and the resident workshop, where you'll learn how to read x-rays, you'll learn how to suture, you'll learn just tons. So the best thing I can tell you is to acquire this experience, obtain this experience just by going. You have to go and learn. And the more you know now, it's going to help you on this trail. So I just wanted to follow that up with, how can 4th-year students currently on this trail better prepare for an interview and to obtain residency?
That's a good question too. So in my opinion, again, I mentioned the 4 R's, which I think are key, and then also be prepared.
Okay.
When you show up to these different opportunities, let me backtrack just a second. When I was going through, which is some time ago, we had an opportunity to do different rotations so that you can get experience with rotating through different orthopedic programs, which was a tremendous benefit. I could perhaps go through 3 or 4 different programs for outpatient surgery or orthopedic surgery or general surgery rotation, which we would use for orthopedics, to be able to expose my skills and talents to the program so that we could learn about each other, find out what would be a good fit for me, and then they could also kind of find out what would be a good fit for them. Now, it may be more difficult at different schools, depending where you are, to be able to get that same level of access. And so, whereas perhaps on my first rotation, I thought I was pretty good at things, I certainly learned a lot through the rotation so that when I went into the second rotation, I was even that much stronger. Now, if you only have an opportunity or 1 or 2 rotations, you have to be a little bit clever, I think, to be able to present your best face when you do get the opportunity to go through. So at your medical school, if you have access, go to the fracture conferences. I used to go to the fracture conferences. I went to PCOM, and I went to the fracture conferences after I would finish my rotations. Fortunately, they had them after hours, and I would show up and I would ask questions and try to participate the best that I could because I really wanted to learn it. And that was one of the ways that I found that I really did enjoy orthopedic surgery. I wanted to spend all my free time learning more about it. Exposing yourself further, going to opportunities and events that you have. I know that you folks have had different workshops with suturing, reviewing x-rays,
Yes.
placing casts, things like that. Being in that kind of a rich environment for kind of some cross-pollination to learn, you never know when those things that you pick up are going to become useful for you, and that you can really shine on your rotations. And that's what you want to do. You want to make the most of the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Take a lot of your advice and apply that to the next audition.
Do we have another question?
Yeah. Scroll down for me, Joy, or up. There was one here I thought was very interesting. Let's see. So what hand skills courses do you provide for students at annual meetings that can help us set ourselves apart on an audition rotation?
So I guess that's a hands-on type of a
So at the last conference, we had a casting workshop. We also had a suturing workshop, which took a good amount of time, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much practice you think you have, you always need more. And let me tell you from my experience, it's one thing to practice suturing on a banana until you go in the OR and do it with a whole bunch of adrenaline, tremors in your hand and everything like that.
Someone's watching you.
Someone's watching you, grading
Scrub
you.
text, yeah, there's a lot of parts to it.
So we do a lot of things with our hands at these conferences, and we're trying to add a lot more just to keep you guys busy and just to introduce you guys some skills that you will need in the future.
I'm going to put it right out there too. There are very few people that want osteopathic medical students to succeed more than the SAOAO and the AOAO. I'm going to put it right out there. And the reason is because you're the future.
Yes.
We came from somewhere because of the roads that were paved before us. We're trying to pave, as we discussed, roads for those coming behind us. And we want to make you the best with a cast. We want you to go into that rotation and shine. We want you to go into that rotation, even if it's your first, and know how to throw knots, know how to pass sutures. So those kinds of opportunities are very helpful. We have a number of different opportunities, those included, and we're always adding more, working with the SAOAO for whatever we can do and provide at the meetings. So becoming part of that, if there are things that you would like to see further, if there are other resources that you need, again, we're your partner in this. We want to help you shine. We want to help you bring credit to our field, our profession, and most importantly, deliver the best care possible on the planet for orthopedic patients.
Now, another question.
Another question, yes. What skills do you suggest a student build outside of the classroom during med school that will help them be a better first-year resident?
Here's some more question for you.
That's a great question. Two things came to my mind. One is humility. And I say that because working with other folks on a team in that kind of an environment requires a lot of humility. I'm going to share with you exactly what I mean by that. We may remember when you go to your first fracture conference, you have a lot of excitement and you see the resident put the films up and they read the film and you see things that you've never seen before, you never heard of before. It's almost like a different language, because it is. When you approach that as a first-year resident, you're in a huge sea of information. The way that you can access that information and assimilate it is by being open to it, by working real hard, and by looking for opportunities to learn. So that's one part. The other part is roll up your sleeves and be ready to work. I can tell you, when I was a chief resident, we would always kind of have a little, I wouldn't say test, but we would always ask maybe a first-year resident, a student would have you coming through. We would ask them to do something and may not give them entirely all of the information needed for them to do it. For instance, back in the day, we did have plain films. You'd have to go down to the x-ray room. We would say, go pick up the x-rays from Mrs. Smith from her total hip that was done 6 months ago.
Some clinics still have it.
Yeah. And so we would want to see how resourceful is that student or that resident in going ahead and accomplishing that task. You may not know the answer, and I'm going to tell you, in life, you're not going to know many answers. But what separates us is how we pursue learning the answer to that question and what we do with the information once we have it. So again, to sum up, 1, approach it with humility. 2, hard work, determination, and be resourceful. And your team.
Yes.
Work together as a team. We're all in this together. Everybody moves ahead by being part of that team and contributing.
Yes.
Here's another good question. Are there opportunities to interact with program directors at these meetings?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I fell in love with this organization at this last meeting. I can tell you day one, I met at least 10. They're extremely warm. They're extremely receptive. I want to say just by speaking with them, they'll give you a card. Hey, contact me at a later date. Simply another audition invitation, you know, just by being there, just speaking with them, because by being there, it shows your interest. It shows how passionate you are in orthopedic surgery. And at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to. How passionate, how hard do you want to work? What are you willing to sacrifice to get what you really want to have achieved or have done in life? And, you know, just like Dr. Brewster, he was speaking to me earlier today and just telling me about everything he had to sacrifice to get to where he is now. So coming to these conferences, speaking with them, trust me, I was extremely nervous when I first approached them because, you know, here I am, a third-year medical student, not sure how I would be received, but they are wanting that. They love that. They seek that. So just attend these conferences and you'll see yourself.
You know, I think that to build on that, I think we're really blessed, really, to have the program directors that we have. These are a group of individuals that have committed themselves to the education of osteopathic orthopedic residents. And that's the incubator. That's where our future lies. And it's really exciting to go to these different opportunities. And many of them are at the meetings, all of the meetings.
Yes.
See them in the hallway, typically very open to answering questions, things of that sort. Student forums that they attend. Again, why? Because we want to try to make the best osteopathic orthopedic surgeon we can. We're dedicated to that. The program directors have done a stellar job with providing for the future of the organization and the profession. And they're very accessible. We're all over those
Yes.
lectures in the exhibit hall and so forth.
Yes. Yes, they are.
One more question here. What should students who don't score as well on the board exams do to counterbalance it? Can you overlook numbers with work ethic?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. So I can tell you what I was told, 'cause I have a lot of colleagues that fell under that boat, and then I'm sure Dr. Armbruster can tell you, you know, the professional advice. But what I was told is that, you know, many of these programs, they're not simply looking at numbers. You know, what stands us apart from our allopathic counterparts is that you are way more than a number. And, you know, to combat that, they're also looking at your COMLEX 2 scores, you know, because at the end of the day, they want to be as comprehensive as they can. So if you don't like your step 1 score, fine. You know, do well third year. That's what I was told. You know, you want to kill the shelf exams. You also just want to do some research. You just want to read. If you can get your foot in the door just by getting an audition, you have to work your tail off. This, at the end of the day, it comes down to work ethic, humility, like he said, and teamwork. There's not one person out there that do not appreciate a great teamwork, you know, just a team member in general. If you can't work in a team, but, you know, you have the highest board scores, you know, no one's going to want you. You know, no one wants a jerk. No one wants a gunner. At the end of the day, just every program is a home environment. You know, you just want to be a family. So if you can fit into that family, then you shouldn't have too much to worry about.
Ultimately, the different programs have different weights that they place upon the board scores. And I have never had the privilege of being a program director. And it's really up to the different flavor or characteristics of the program itself. And they interpret those scores the way that they would like to. So whereas some programs will have minimum scores, other programs will not. But I do agree with you, Fred. I think that it's really about presenting the whole package. You do the best you can. You make sure that you spend the time that you need to prepare for your classes, for your boards, for your rotations, and so forth. And you give it the best shot that you can. And what are we saying? We can't guarantee that we can get you an orthopedic residency position. There's no such thing. But at the end of the day, we're saying that we can help you with the best chances of doing so. And being educated about it, being prepared about it, and understanding these things is going to be the best help. Board scores are important. Do your best, as in all things. But at the end of the day, you present a unified package that's compelling and that's going to give you the best opportunity.
We have one more question here, a very good one as well. At the conference, will there be opportunities to speak with any residents who could give advice on how the match process works?
Oh, yes. I would say a good 85% of the attendees there are residents. Just like the program directors, they're extremely receptive. All you have to do is approach them and they'll ask or they'll answer any questions you may have. I can tell you right now, I can show you my contact list in my phone and you'll see nothing but resident, this person, that person in my phone. They're extremely open, they're extremely receptive. You speak to them and they will give you, you know, the raw advice on how to obtain residency.
We're a small organization, and we succeed, again, by our relationships, our networking between us. And I don't know as if 85% of the participants, because it's mostly, of course, orthopedic surgeons, but there are a lot of residents that attend.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you folks there that if you have a few moments, the next webinar will be with a resident representative. But what I would tell you is that there are opportunities to speak with residents and to network with residents so that they can share additional information with you.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's it, Fred. I want to thank everyone for participating this morning. And as mentioned earlier, all the answers that have been generated from the questions and additional answers that may not have been able to be addressed during the live portion of this program will be sent to participants. For any of you fellow students there, actually, for your fellow students who are unable to participate, the link to the webinar will be sent directly to the AOAO office next week.
Yes. Thank you guys so much for taking the time out of your day just to listen to us. And like I said, if you have any questions that weren't answered, we're going to send out a link with the answers available. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Good luck.